It all feels different, even though these suns still look the same. There's something sinister. Tell me, is there somewhere I can place the blame? Is this all that we've got? Is this all that we've amounted to? I was down on my luck, baby, I just needed a little boost from you. All of heaven's saints, oh my darling, they've got nothing on you. Asleep at heaven's gates, you were tired of trying, and I know how that feels. But what a glorious sunrise. God, and how that warming light feels upon my skin. What a glorious sunrise. God, I had a soul inside this cold case I'm in. Heaven's saints, oh my darling, they've got nothing on you. Asleep at heaven's gates, you were tired of trying, and I know how that feels, I do. But what a glorious sunrise. Forgotten how that warming light feels upon my skin. Oh, what a glorious sunrise. God, I had a soul inside this cold case I'm in. What a glorious sunrise.
And what a glorious sunrise indeed. Welcome back to Eunuch Corner Club Live. I'm the host, he is the Eunuch. Welcome back. I know it's been a couple of months since I've had one of these. But I started off the stream today with an uplifting song about love and hope and family and all that good positive stuff, because we're going to be talking about sad stuff today. But I want you to remember, whatever darknesses that we share today and the dark things that we talk about, the goal is, of course, to be positive, to find love, fulfillment, peace, fellowship, family, that kind of thing. So today I'm going to be talking with my good friend Christopher Evrard about mental health and well-being from a personal angle. Chris and I have things to share, and hopefully, despite the dark things that we talk about, you are going to hopefully be inspired and maybe learn some things about how to make yourself perhaps a little happier, have a little more hope, and maybe you'll come out of this better than you were. So we already have about 16 people listening. Hopefully we'll have a few more by the turn of the hour. I know we started a few minutes early, but I was excited to get started because I have a lot I want to talk about. So Chris, before we get started here, how about you tell people what it is you do with your channel and who you are as a creator, since you're not on my channel a lot. Take a few minutes and tell people who you are and what you're up to, and I'll share your link in the chat while you're talking.
Well, thank you, Yes, and first off, thanks again for having me. As
Of course.
always, it's always a privilege, honestly, to be invited to talk on your channel. And for this stream in particular, let's say that I encourage you greatly to do it because I know I have stuff to talk about this different team that we will be covering today because it's something very close to my heart, to my life, to my work, and everything. So, first off, about my artistic and creative endeavor, I have two angles. The first one is my books. So, I'm a writer. I write dark fantasy novels. Um, for people who may remember, we did a few stream about it, like maybe 1 year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, between a year and
What
2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so some people may be already aware of what I'm doing. So if you know, for example, the manga Berserk, or if you know the book series or the video game, the Witcher, it's something akin to that. So it's a dark setting, but with medieval tone and magic and monsters and dragons and blah blah
It's
blah.
awesome.
Thank you. And I just released my sixth book quite recently because I succeeded in like let's say a French crowdfunding website. So that I'm pretty happy about it. The second angle of my creative activity is I have a YouTube channel which I speak about, well, basically everything and anything at the same time. But mainly first off, autism, because I am someone with Asperger syndrome and I've been diagnosed quite late in my life, so I have a very peculiar path, like in my past and my life, and what everything was about me and for me in life in general. And the second one is, well, the culture war. So
Yeah.
this is how we connected, I think, via the culture war and my artistic activity.
Yeah, there were a bunch of the usual suspects, let's say, of a
Yeah.
particular color of hair that gave Chris a lot of trouble making up a bunch of specious things. Gave him a lot of trouble in the old culture war.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't easy for a few years, and now it's a bit better, but I still feel like uh how to say that, like the aftermath, or like the replica of the initial earthquake. So
mhm.
it's not rose and peachy and everything, but it's damn better than it was before. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, I'm glad. During the course of the stream, if you guys have anything you want to ask Chris, or anything you want to share about mental health, please consider doing so by using Entropy. That's how you can financially support me with your comments. You can find the Entropy link pinned in all the chat where you're listening to this, and if you're listening on replay, it's in the top. It's the first link of how to financially support. You can also send rants on Rumble, Hypers chats on Odyssey, and I would deeply appreciate you consider being a monthly subscriber over on Subscribestar. And over there, you can send tips, which are like paid chats there. And of course, you can send short messages on PayPal and Cash App. And I'll be checking on those periodically throughout the stream. And we'll be glad to answer any questions or respond to your comments. So I'll check for those every 15, 20 minutes. And I'll definitely check again at the end before we get out of here. So, Chris, you approached me about wanting to talk about mental health publicly. And I thought that was a good
Yep.
idea. So, to set the stage today, what would you like to open up with? Do you want to start with the thing we talked about just before we went live? Do you want to start with that?
Something like that, but I will be even more direct. Is that I bet that, well, maybe everyone on the chat. I see the YouTube chat, but I know you are also on Rumble and Odyssey and
Mhm.
other, maybe a bit more racist platform.
we only we
But
only have one over on Odyssey, which is me
okay,
monitoring Odyssey. But we have 6 people watching on Rumble, and
okay.
we've got
So
we've got
sorry,
15 on
unfortunately,
YouTube.
I don't see the Rumble chat, but I bet that everyone, or almost everyone, who is watching the live now, they watch your walking video. Which,
Oh
by the
yes.
way, my one of my favorite kind of content you do. Like I don't know if it's just because you are a cute woman, or maybe you just have a lovely voice, or
You
is it
sweet
the
talker.
setting?
Very
I don't
kind of
know.
you to call me a woman. It's very
I know
kind of
what
you.
a woman is. I know what a woman is.
I know.
No,
I'm just being fun. I'm just being fun.
Seriously though, I very much enjoy your walking video because they are actually genuine, and sometimes, which is what you did like a few months ago, you were a bit more private, or like, open about some dark feelings, or
Yeah.
maybe a bad head place or something like that.
Mhm.
And it resonates a lot about what I've been through like years and years ago, maybe a decade ago, which is feeling isolated and like, um, am I an alien on my own planet? Something like that. One of my first articles that I wrote on a very old blog of mine when I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome is something like, I'm sorry, can you tell, which is a metaphor of like a little child talking to an adult, like, excuse me, can you tell me where my planet is? And I know this is something that you must feeling, or something
Yeah.
like that, and many people must feel something like that regarding the culture war and
Yeah. Many of
the
us feel like aliens among our own family and community because
yes,
of how things have changed. It's very isolating to
yeah,
be a person who, for whatever reason, whether it's something biological, like with you, you've got Asperger's and you've always been sort of a slightly autistic, artist,
yeah, and I've been
troubled
diagnosed
artist.
quite late, so
And
I knew the answer
I've always
beforehand.
been troubled by being intersex because
Yeah,
things like romance and sex and sexual identity, those have never come easily to me. I didn't have a normal puberty one way or the other. So in my mind, things like kissing and sex are still kind of weird and gross, like I'm a 5-year-old. And it's
yeah,
like it's been something I've had to learn, like, okay, what am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? Like it's been a very difficult challenge dealing with that, and it makes me feel like an alien from another planet. And I'm sure that that's a very relatable sentiment, that for
yes.
whatever underlying reason, that yourself and a lot of people listening have struggled with that feeling, like, I don't belong here. Why are these people not like me? I feel like the odd one out, etc.
Yeah, and also not just not being understood, or not feeling that you express yourself correctly, because the answer you get from others with a capital O are like so weird and strange, and they don't they don't answer your question or the topic you bring to the table, and it's even like exponentially exaggerated with social media and the political landscape of today, and
Hmm.
even more so with the culture landscape. Like, I'm sure that even you in the Anglosphere, because in the Francosphere it's a very, 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 very big topic right now, is the Ubisoft problem with DEI and Assassin's Creed and blah blah blah. And yeah, when even a stupid video game, or a video game company that you like become a topic of divisiveness, like, where the hell are we?
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
course,
Yeah.
you're gonna feel isolated.
Yeah.
And I will never say what we talk about in private, you and I, but I know you also have some private problems sometimes, and
Yeah.
I know this is it's like a parasite knowing that your happiness and mental energy and physical energy, like, you feel you are like a vampire is sucking your blood, and all your
Yeah.
energy is wiped out of existence in the nether and the abyss, and whatever
Yeah.
metaphor you want to feel.
And
So
I think that I've got a few things to say here about feeling isolated despite being around others. And I think a lot of that comes from not necessarily those, like, you know how on my channel we cover culture war deep dive stuff, like, where does Marxism come from? Where does anti-whiteism come from? How are
you
those
mean
things connected?
Empire of Lies, or
Yeah, yeah,
just
well, just
everything?
in all of my content, like, just
Okay.
especially Empire of Lies, but I'm not really even talking about purposeful, willful evil here with what I'm about to speak on. I think that in the last 150 to 200 years, the dramatic changes of technology and interaction of human beings has changed at a rate much faster than we can adapt to. And you've got railways connecting people, then you have flying ships, then you have radio and television and internet and telephones. And these things, even if we were all the same race and all the same religion, and there wasn't any like big competing civilizational groups, like, and you take away all of the like purposeful anti-white Marxist, mind poison stuff that these people try to put into comic books and TV shows and things. If you even take away all of that, and you look at a healthy version of what that culture could be, it still has problems that we face. Because when you have cultural touchstones based on tradition and family and community, like we had for hundreds and hundreds of years in Europe, you have a real cultural touchstone. Your culture is real and old, and it has staying power.
Yeah, it's like the foundation of a house. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you look at modern day, like let's look at just the last, let's say 100 years. Let's look at the last 100 years. We went from the very last remnants of people who kind of remembered what it was like to have real tradition. Yep. And then you had massive wars for a long time. And those people still, though, despite all the wars in Europe, despite all the wars that have happened in either because of or involving the United States, up until about 100 years ago, people still had some semblance of tradition and old-timey connective touchstones that could give them identity and meaning and personal connection to things. But then, after the 20s and 30s, this is when everything really stopped. Because if you look at the last real artistic, not engineering, architectural and visual art style, it's pretty much Art Deco of the early 1900s. That's really the last European expression of aesthetic. And that's dead and gone and has been for a long time.
There was something still to the 40s and early 50s, but after that, yeah, it was much more like international and not like.
But that's my point, though. Is you already you already had brutalism becoming kind of a mainstay in many places, and Art Deco is kind of like an Anglo-Western, Anglosphere American thing. The Art Deco stuff, but like that's gone. I don't want to talk about art and architecture. That was just
I'm agreeing with you because in France, specifically, like I think it was just after the war, like the 40s and the 50s. There's an expression in France, not even Belgium, which is the 30 glorious, like 30 glorious years, which is the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which was the explosion of. You basically had it also in the US, but in France it was a very big thing, and it's also talked about with a bit of nostalgia and like those were the days and blah blah blah. But just after the war in the 40s and the 50s, there was a big push in the artistic field, basically with music and French singer. Which is why you had like Edith Piaf, Jacques Brel, and maybe people you don't know, but at least in Europe, it was very big, and they opened up and revealed themselves in those years. But still, that's your point. After that, it was a done and done.
Yeah, let me move on from that because I was halfway through making a point.
Sorry.
That's okay. So that. Looking back around 100 years ago is really when the last of a real shared cultural aesthetic and identity sort of began to wither away. And again, we'll get to the purposeful stuff later, but let's talk about the non-purposeful stuff now. Consumerism, corporatism, the things that have sort of defined the last 100 years of American life, and also in a lot of ways, European life in any country. We have broken the chain of identity because of technology and because of civic arrangement. You have welfare based on charity and family and community replaced with government and corporate welfare and services. You have traditional stories, folklore, and entertainment replaced by comic books, Hollywood, video games, radio, TV, people looking to make a buck to entertain strangers. And while all of that stuff is, in a way, awesome that we can do that, it has had a very deracinating effect on the individual. Because now, let's say you grow up in the West Coast of the United States and you were a boomer. You were born in like 51 or whatever, right? Well, you would have a lot of the same cultural touchstones as someone who grew up on the East Coast 2,000 or 3,000 miles away from you, because you listen to the same publicly syndicated music from record companies. You have the same cultural touchstones of comic books, movies. You have the same cultural touchstones of the kind of car that you drive, because remember, cars and roads and things really exploded in the mid 1900s. And that's kind of a new thing culturally. So you had a lot of defining touchstones that were not personal, that were not about your family, your community, your family history, your religion, none of that. Your cultural touchstones were replaced by commercial, impersonal things. And I don't think that most people even realized that was happening until it was too late. Because again, I'm not saying that, I'm not talking down to the average person, but most people are not of a higher mind and a cultivated spirit to think about things like this as they are happening to them. Many people in their older age can reflect on this and see this, but very few people can see it when they're young adults or a middle-aged adult while it's happening to them. And so you've got this, now we are generations into a mechanized, globalized, commercial civilization where everything is really big or everything is hyper individualistic and there's no room in between. And that room in between is where real community and real identity happens, because it's either these giant identities that are for everyone, or your own tiny individual personal experience and what things mean to you only. But neither one of those things leads to healthy fulfillment and healthy identity. And I think that despite all the purposeful, harmful stuff we'll talk about in a little while, I think that all of this stuff, even if it was all good intentioned, which I don't think all of it was, but even if all of it was good intentioned, I think that this is one of the primary reasons why we have such a noticeable level of depression, suicide, malcontent, and people having lack of hope and purpose today. So I know that was a big mouthful and I said a lot the last 5 minutes, but what do you feel about that, Chris? Do you think that is one of the primary things that leads to people like us feeling so isolated and alone?
I don't know if it's a primary one, but it definitely play a huge part in it. Like you cannot evade this topic or this um, dislocation of the base of every human being ever. Like this is one of the key points of the left and the woke and the I don't even know how to call them anymore. Like there are so many strata and like subculture or subgroup or I don't know. But these degenerates, yeah, they attack the family concept, the family symbol, the family unity. Like I remember some election in France, like some influencer and YouTuber like publicly said like try to have the right to vote for your aunt or your grandmother and blah 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 and vote for the left party. Like they just don't know what's correct, so you have to cheat them. So, like what the fuck, like what?
Yeah,
We are at this point.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways that does speak to the normal human condition of most people are not like I talked about in my morning walks recently, this week, last week, and a few times before. Most people are followers, not leaders, and that's
your
that's a kind
video.
way of saying most people are dumb sheep that will do what they're told, that will do what the shepherd says. But I don't want to look down on normal people. Normal people are very important, and it's like when you extrapolate the human condition to this massive scale, you get a lot of problems, because in a traditional way of living, you had to care about your family, your church, the people in your community, your extended family, the people you relied on for water and food and for firewood in the winter. You had to be in good standing with those people because your very livelihood, your survival depended on it. But now, when all of that's taken away by modern technology and state welfare and things, those things aren't really something that a normal person ever has to think about or consider. So what is that replaced with? That need to have you're a good person reflected back at you didn't go away. And that is where we get into the realm of purposeful manipulation, psyops, government manipulation, corporate manipulation, and motivated minorities that are trying to get their way in this complex sea of modern strife, of non-kinetic warfare. And so you have people in the modern era that are normal in every way. They just want to, go to work and eat food that tastes good and watch TV shows and have a wife or a husband. These people still have that need to have that pat on the back socially that says, you're a good person, you're going to survive the winter. But what does that take the form of now? It takes the form of anti-whiteism. It takes the form of you have to support the current thing. It takes the form of I got to do what's best for the entire planet, not what's best for me and my family and my community.
I don't even know if they are at that point, because many normie people, they are just caught up in the working machine, like what's the saying, like metro, job, sleep, something like that. So they don't even have time to think about it, and also they are not interested in it. So I'm not even sure that they are like mainly and solely just disinterested, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So let's talk about some personal experiences now, or just personal feelings on these things. I'll go ahead and start, and then you can step in as well. When it comes to feeling alienated and detached or deracinated, for an example, I grew up in East Tennessee with a large family who loved me. My biological mother and father were a very bad match who got married young. They shouldn't have done that. And they got divorced when I was like 4 or 5 years old. They were very hateful and snarky and mean to each other. They got into not like violent altercations, but a few times they would get mad and shake or slap the other and throw stuff. They were a terrible match.
Slightly dysfunctional.
More than slightly, but not violently most of the time. But anyway, other than that, most of my family interactions were positive. I had lots and lots of cousins. When my father remarried, I had a brother. We got along great. I had a lot of family and cultural positive stuff. We went to church. I went to a private Christian school. I had lots and lots of private, small community experiences. But by the time the 90s rolled around and I was of high school age, I already started noticing that families were breaking up, people were moving away, and it was very unusual to me because I grew up in this small Christian Appalachian bubble that told me all those things were wrong. All those things were dangerous and bad. Go ahead.
How many people were in your village, towns,
Maybe like less than 10,000. But
okay.
Here in Appalachia, though, it's populated by little pockets of a few thousand people, and we're all really close together. So it's not like living in a little town of 10,000 people, and then there's 50 or 100 miles of wilderness before you get to someone else. It's a very populated area. So my little township was maybe like 8,000 people. And then close to us was another township of that many. And then the nearest city was maybe a 20 or 30-minute drive away on the highway, and it had 50 to 100,000 people.
So it's still not a big community. So you
not
practically
huge.
know each other.
The private school that I went to when I was little, the private Christian school, only had about 100 students for ages 5 to 10. So
mine is
very
55.
How many?
55.
Oh, wow. That's tiny. Yeah. So, yeah. But I mean, that was like 100 kids of all ages, 5 to 10. It was a very small school. So, you know, I had a very private, insular childhood upbringing with mostly positive influence and cultural experiences. They were all white. They were all Anglo. They were all of American heritage stock. They were all of the same kind of like Southern Baptist Christian. It was a very homogenous community. And I was treated with love and care, and I was taught the right way to live. Now, pair that to what happened when I left that school, because that school was only for ages 5 to 10. So I went to middle school and high school in public school. And the differences I saw were night and day. Again, racially, most people were still the same here. Like this place, even today, 40 years later, is still mostly homogenous. We're like 97% white Christian here. Like we don't have much diversity here to speak of. But one thing I noticed going to public school was people were different. They were from non-Christian families. They were from families who moved in from out of the area. They were from all over America, some of them. Some of them were from Canada. We had a half black, half white girl, and her family was from, I think, New York and Alaska. And for whatever reason, for work, her family moved to East Tennessee, and she went to school with us. It was like the only non-white that went to school with me in middle school. So, like, I got introduced to people, children, like 11 to 14 in middle school, that were from families and ideologies and communities much, much different than the homogenous religious community I was raised in. And it wasn't that at the time I thought they were bad. I could just tell they were different. And that difference, being forced to go to this school where the teachers didn't really know or care much about me because I had to go to a big public school and there were just so many fucking kids. Every class had like 30 or 40 kids in it. And every teacher was clearly overworked and underpaid. So they couldn't care. They didn't have the capacity to care. And so children
It's
fought
funny
and teased
because
each other. Children fought and teased each other. I got teased and made fun of and stuff for being a weird girly boy, no gender. They used to call me all kinds of stuff. And I didn't really know how to handle that. And my parents had their own problems and everybody else had their own problems. And no one was invested in trying to actually do the right thing and make things like I was raised to think they were supposed to be: order, morality, structure, things. If you did something wrong, you had to be punished and you had to be held accountable. Those things that I was taught that were enshrined in me as a little kid just went out the window when I went to public school. And then when I got to high school, it was even worse. It was like open degeneracy. We had 2 or 3 openly homosexual teachers. We were told that you're not allowed to talk about religious stuff, and Christianity doesn't have any room to be in school. Keep in mind, this is in East Tennessee in the 90s, where like 95% of people are like culturally American Christians, and we're almost all the same racial ethnic group. And even in public school then, that's what it was like. So it was a very sort of culture shock, alienating, stripping of identity, stripping of cultural roots process going through public school. So now I turn it over to you, Chris. Did you have experiences like that in school? And at what point in your young life did you start feeling like you had either no or were losing a cultural identity? And how did that make you feel alone and hopeless?
Well, first off, what I wanted to say is that we had a pretty similar upbringing, like almost. I come from even a smaller, like little town, little village.
Mm-hmm.
Like my school, yeah, it was 55 students from age, I think, 4 to 12, which is primary school, what we say in Belgium. And I remember once the school was close because they didn't have enough kids, but they managed to pull through. And it's when I was in secondary school, which is like high school for you, that I had this culture shock of like, oh, people are mean sometimes. Well, they were mean before, but for different reason. um I felt isolated all of my life, but not for the culture you talk about. It was just I was unlucky, like mean people, like um, teacher who pull hair of children when they are bad, like in kindergarten, stuff like that. So yeah, I was even beaten by my teacher, but it was not a culture thing. I had the culture shock you speak about when I was in secondary school, so high school for you. When I met my first real bully, like Arab
Mm-hmm.
ethnicity folks.
Oh, I had a few of
Who,
those myself. Yes, I'm familiar.
yeah, and for the first time in my life, I saw like people doing bad in school, like and like gloating about it. I had a 3 on 20 on my test. Ha ha ha. What a child I am. Like, what the fuck? You're supposed to do good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and for time reference, I went in secondary school like I think it was 2000, yeah, specific 2000, and yeah, that was at the time that I see young folks smoking, and like being proud of I kissed this girl and I cheated on her with this one, and like
Oh
you
yeah,
suppose
yeah. I was blown
like
away by that in high school too. I was surprised.
yeah, in my young naive mind, I was like, but love. What about love and being honest and you start observing that sometimes crime does pay, and even to this
Hmm.
day I'm like, yes, it does. Like, I remember a cartoon, I think it was a Disney one with Donald Duck. He did some bad thing in an episode, and like he paranoid about, he goes paranoid about it, like, oh, I'm going to get caught by the cops and in jail and blah blah blah, crime does not pay, blah blah blah. And now in 2024 you see, no, crime pays.
Yeah, it seems like
it pays very
being a
good.
heartless. It seems like being a heartless criminal, sociopathic monster does in fact reward you quite a bit.
Yes, and even in my artistic endeavor, like you are even obligated to do it. Like a small tangent about my artistic activity. I went this weekend to the biggest convention in Belgium.
Ooh.
More than 60K people, like
Oh
six
wow, that's a
zero and
huge
30.
convention. That's
Yes.
wild. That's big.
The booth I took, which is a big one, to be honest, it's like 12 square meter, and it was for 2 people. Me and the cosplayer who did the costume of my main character. I think you saw it.
Yeah, this is the one that. Yeah, I've seen it. It's
Yeah,
wonderful costume.
so it's decent. It's not the biggest one, but for a small artist like me, it's like I have big ambition,
Hmm.
and I sold for around about 1,500 euros of books, but the booth costs 1,000. So you add the cost of the booth, you add the cost of parking,
Yeah, so you
hotel.
didn't come out of it with much money.
No, no, I just pay my own fees. So yeah, and the cost of living, let me rephrase that. The cost of thing is different in Europe and the US, because in the US your like minimum wage for a year, I think it's something like 15 or 60K, something like that, for the poverty line, or I don't know what you call
No,
that.
it's much lower than that. It's much lower than that.
Well,
Let me look up the current U.S. minimum wage.
yeah,
Current U.S. minimum wage. Let's see.
the yearly one, if you have it.
Well, it's only $7.25 an hour.
Yeah,
So
but like
if
like
you could work full time, I
yeah,
don't think it's going to be anywhere near 60K. Give me just a second to pull up in a calculator. Let's
yeah, I
do
don't.
7.25.
Yeah,
0.25 times 40 hours a week times 52. Yeah, minimum wage would only be around $15,000 a year, 15,000 USD.
yeah, okay. So that's that's more that you can have in Europe sometimes. So yeah,
Now,
but if you
some cities and states have a higher minimum wage.
yeah,
California has the highest at $16 per hour. So that would
yeah,
be a little more than double. So like around $32,000 to $35,000 a year for minimum wage. But please go on.
yeah. So just so close that. I will answer later. But yeah, the thing is that in the US you basically normally make quite a bit more money than in Europe, and so the cost of thing is different. Even with you have social security, you have insurance, you have blah blah blah, you have everything you need. At the end of the day or end of the month, you maybe have, I don't know, 200 or 300 dollars for whatever you want, like a video
Hmm.
games, going to a movie, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
In Europe, maybe you just have 30 or 40 euros. So it's
Okay.
very different. But the price of thing is the same. Like video game is $60 in the US, $60 in Europe. My book is 20 euros here, will be $20 there. So it's not the same. It's not the same.
I
And
see.
it's a very different way of living. It's very different way of conceptualizing your path for the future, your career, the food you eat,
It's
everything,
it reminds me
everything.
of the American mind cannot comprehend meme.
Yeah. But it's very important. And when I try to explain that to my Belgian friends, they even say, yes, but no, like if you have to do a scanner, it's like 20K in the US. Yes, but you have insurance, you can lower the cost, and you make much more money in the US. And but they don't get it. They don't get
Yeah,
it.
money making potential for motivated people in America is still pretty good. Like there's still
Yeah,
a lot of entrepreneurship, and despite how horrible corporations and governments are, there still is a lot of potential to make money in the United States. And I even as flawed and evil as insurance companies and the healthcare industry is, I still prefer the private plus insurance option over only having state welfare health insurance. It
yeah.
seems to work out better for me anyway. Like your
Yeah.
mileage may vary, but for me, I
For
prefer that.
a reference in Europe, let's say like the very much minimum wage, like the what's it that the social money you can get for the government to barely
Hmm.
survive is something like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 euros a month. So
Okay.
you go for a year with 12,000, but the rent in the city is like minimum 500. So yeah.
Yeah, I know rent's very expensive these days. But
So
but let's
yeah,
let's move back to talking about mental health and experiences here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so
but it's on topic. But you do good to remind me of this. So this is things that, for example, in my case, when I was a little kid and like I have no future, like I was beaten by my teacher, beaten by my friends, my house was on fire, or like literally at one point. I lost my father when I was not even 3 years old. My mother was an alcoholic. My family exploded with fights like and blood everywhere in a family event and stuff like that. So my life was shit.
yeah,
So when you have um, autism, you don't even know it, and the teacher do nothing to like explain why your kid, when he was a very little wee boy, did very good in school. Like I had like 90% every single time almost. And when I went into high school with what I explained, oh, people smoke, people try to hit girls for the sole purpose of hitting girls. Yeah, I said to myself, why bother trying to be a good boy? And I just dreamt of evading everything, and art was one of the things that interests me. But in Belgium and in Europe in general, there is no hope and no incentive and no desire to encourage young folks to pursue a career in art or creative or entrepreneurship or whatever the fuck. Like another thing is, sorry to go back to this, but in Belgium specifically, the income tax is minimum 25%, starting of the first cent you make to 50%. And
damn.
you add to that social security, which is sometimes 20%.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
So if you are like I said before the stream, like a mom and pop shop stuff like that, if you are in Belgium, you can be robbed of 70% or whatever money you make.
That that's criminal. That
Yes.
is criminal. I can't believe that. That's
So
ugh.
in this kind of environment, how do you think people with not weak mind, but um, not the most suited people for social interaction fare?
Yeah,
How
it's
do we
probably pretty
expect them
rough.
to do? Yeah, so it's very complex. That's why I always say there is no hope in Europe, right? Maybe in France there is like a right wing bastion that started to grow and dug itself, and this is why the wokies strike so hard at France, is that there is hope in France for maybe turning the tide. But anyway, um, in the US, you have Trump, you have the Texas, you have Florida, you have hope. You have place to
And
go. You
it's
have
not just politics that give hope in America.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
I think it's other stuff too, other cultural things, and also the fact that we meaning most Americans who do not like all the stuff that you just talked about, all the pause, all the anti-white stuff, all the evil,
yeah,
corporate stuff that's taking away our industry and selling us up and selling us all off to China and India and stuff. Like, you have a lot of people in America that are doing something about it. We are organizing. We are creating businesses that cater to local instead of corporate or global. And there's a lot of movement in America right now to try to fix the or to try to heal or excise the cancer that's killing us. And I think that there is hope in America in that I don't see in other places in the West
mm.
right now. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah. And even for example, I'm not a religious person. Like even not just as you, because I know that you have like a respect and um, like you have an inner belief in yourself, even if you are not religious. Like you could say it more correctly than me, but I think you know what I'm trying to get to. But in Europe, there is no like. Remain of religion, to going to church, Christianity, baptism, communion. No, it's done over.
I've heard that in many places that is kind of dead, and that's very sad.
It's not even dead. It's like a thing of the past. Like you see a church and oh, still there.
Oh,
Like
well,
there is no one in in churches in Belgium, France, or whatever. You just have tourists who say, "Oh, nice building. Let's go to the next one." That's
well,
it.
let's now is a good time for us to talk about what I think purposeful meddling and purposeful harm has done to lead us to have isolation and mental harm. Obviously, I always talk about the anti-white element of things, how there's this noticeable racial attack against Western people, against Western kind. But there's also other things that are purposefully done to us that may or may not be of our people, because a lot of times the implementation of different tactics in business and government are from Middle Eastern or Jewish or Asian origin. But let's talk about the purposeful things. I think one of the
Mm,
worst things to happen to us that leads to loneliness, depression, deracination, etc., is advertising. Because when you look at the millions of dollars and countless millions of labor hours put into the psychology and manipulation behind advertising, it's really sick when you study what is behind all of that. We covered some of this on Empire of Lies last year. When you look at the psychology and ideology behind marketing and advertising, it's a very evil, manipulative energy within that. You want to appeal to the id and ego of a regular person. You want your advertising material to turn a person's judgment and gut impulses towards something selfish or something shallow, just so they will buy a product that you're selling. And I feel like many generations now into marketing and advertising ideology, that has sort of become everything. It's become politics, it's become culture, it's become government. Everything wants to manipulate you and appeal to you like an advertisement. It wants to use your own nature against you, to make you do the thing it wants, to check the right box for voting, to buy the right kind of product, to support the right kind of business that the government or whoever's in control wants you to do. And I feel like so much of our deracination and misery comes from this never-ending mental spiritual war against our nature and against our better sensibilities through advertising, through marketing. Um, I don't remember a specific instance of this in my life that I can point to, but I do remember feeling compelled to buy or not buy, to do or not do certain things, just because I saw it on TV all the time, or because I heard it on the radio going to work all the time. And now that I'm older and can reflect on that, I think that's a very harmful, destructive thing that works against our well-being and our mental health. What do you think about that? Do you think that's part of it?
Well, it does at least in partially, but I don't think it's all the problem. Like marketing and propaganda existed like for forever, basically. Like the cliche. I think it's Uncle Sam. Like, we need you. The poster with the US guy.
Right. Right. Like that. This ideology in marketing already existed before then. That's what I'm talking about. Like starting in the early 1900s is like 1920 to 1930 is when this really started, when machinery and the Industrial Revolution was culminated and people had the ability for mass production and mass marketing. That's when this really started. And then by the 30s and 40s, you already had this type of marketing ideology baked into civic nationalist jingoistic propaganda to change the American identity.
Yeah. But I think it's worldwide because, for instance, in Belgium, we have a strong history of Italian miners, and like they did like a huge propaganda. So, yeah, life will be better for you in the mines of blah blah blah. And so we even almost created like small town or like suburbs for Italian that came for job. Basically, it was an economic migration. But again, it was like, I won't surprise you, it was better than the immigration of now because more like-minded culture and roots and blah blah blah. But it was, even back in the day, as you said, there was this type of thing, and it went into overdrive in but basically the 30s and 40s, and there was a stop with the war, of course, but like it started over even stronger after the war. And I think it's the globalization and internally, worldwide thing, that went on with we can influence the mind with publicity and TV and radio, and buy the new shampoo, blah blah blah. I think in the US there is a story about that, like what's the name of it? Like I think it's even on a team for the video game Fallout, like in the 50s, like everyone wanted like a washing machine or a new fridge or a car.
Yeah.
Yes, it was something that started in those days, like the peak propaganda and publicity. But not to be the devil advocate, but you have to make money, so I understand that it happens.
Again, like I said, it's
Yeah.
I view a lot of this stuff as kind of neutral, but then I think some evil, hateful
Thank
people
you, Illuminatus. Yeah,
got
consumerism.
involved, where you have this existing process of mass marketing and public influence. Then comes in the jingoistic war machine people. Then come in all of the anti-white Ashkenazi Jews from Europe. Then come in other people with other agendas, communists of different stripes. Then you have people that want to push certain environmental or climate crisis stuff. They get involved. And you always have these motivated minorities, squeaky wheel gets the grease, that get into corporations, that get into whatever it is, whether it's a record company or an advertising firm or whatever, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So these motivated minorities of ideologically driven, spiteful, evil people use our culture and our technologies against us. And I think that is where a lot of the problems come from. Like let's look, for example, at women in the last 60 to 80 years. Birth control pills, diet pills. You want to look sexy in this way. Oh, no, wait, no, things change. Now you want to look sexy in this way. You need to have all this makeup. You need to have all these lotions and beauty products. Like, women have been warped and messed with because of this, to where they aren't really like women 100 years ago at all, especially when you factor in corporate and medical greedy usury people that want to push birth control pills. And now that we've had 50 years to study the ramifications on women, birth control pills are a nightmare. They make women not women. They make women crazy. They make women not want to procreate, or they make women hypersexual, or they make women
I even start to think that
not in touch with who and what they are. And birth control pills are still rampant. It's like 1 in 3 girls under the age of 20 are still being given birth control pills today. And like
I even start
this
to think that
this has to contribute to the horrible mental health of women. Certainly
yeah,
it
yeah,
contributes to
sure.
it.
But I even start to think that I don't know. It's just I'm thinking about it. That the feminism and a woman in job and blah 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 was a way for the government to just make more money because you work with tax. I don't know. It's just thinking. I don't know, and that's not that I don't care, but it's just like I won't be surprised if it was true. But there's a thing that what you're talking about made me think is the musician Frank Zappa did a wonderful video. I think it was maybe the 80s or early 90s, I don't remember, when he spoke about back in the days, in his days, like in his beginnings, when they wanted to make a record, it was the decision was on the shoulder of the fat American with the cigar and the money guys, money pigs. And they say, we sold 2 million of this record. Make money. I don't know what it is, but we need to make more of that. And so they don't know about it, and they took a risk, and it paid off. Happens. But since they really want to make more money, at one point they hire a hippie because he know what the kids like, and he start low, like bring coffee, blah blah blah, and slowly but surely, at one point he has a foot on his desk, and he say, "Don't do this record because I know what the kids like." And this is when the music industry started to descend into hell, and no one wanted to take risk because according to the hippie, the young folk don't like these things. But in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, you had so many weird music and new genre that emerged, and this is because the fat, despicable money cigar chomping American, well, they took risk, and sometimes it paid off. Just because you have the spirit of enterprise, which is, especially in Europe, like it's disappearing. Like don't try something too risky. Don't try to pursue your dreams. Don't try to make something that maybe will cost a lot and it's not very useful. So yes, you have talent in skateboarding, but you will never be great and you will never make money with that, blah blah blah. So I know that you have to make a living, and safety is one of the key word in this. But how many new Leonardo da Vinci we lost because of this?
Yeah. It is a sad time that we live in. So let's now, since we're about halfway through the stream now, let's talk about the mental health and well-being aim of the stream, which is, let's talk about advice and personal experiences that have helped us deal with being stuck in this modern hellscape. Would you like to start and tell some people about some sadnesses or darknesses that you've dealt with, and processes or behaviors that you have discovered that help with that? Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I did start a bit previously when I said, yeah, my father died when I was not even 3. My mother is an alcoholic, and I tried to reconnect multiple times, and each time it was worse than the previous one. So yeah, my life was very difficult, and being a writer today has never been like a better and most happy moment of my life. Like I feel so fulfilled, you have no idea, and I wish it to everyone. It doesn't mean that my life is like peachy and like everything is good. No, no. I owe people money because they believe in me and stuff, and I hate being like I hate owing people stuff. I hate being dependent. I hate being not good enough to work everything on my own and all of that stuff. So I deal with dark thought every day, but still, like, it's compared to maybe 15 years ago, it's a paradise. My life is heaven compared to back then, because I attempted suicide 2 times and almost a third one in 2022, when I had a very rough week and like back news on bad news on bad news on bad news. So yeah, it was very difficult. But what I discovered not so long ago is that you will always feel isolated, because it is what it is, unfortunately. And I know it's sad, and I know many people would wish a different answer, but it is what it is. So do what you can with the situation you are in and your talent. And like it's almost like Gandalf, who said to Frodo, all we have to decide is what to do with the time we have left, something like that.
Yeah.
Or like Jordan Peterson say, you have to choose between the plague and cholera, but you have to choose. You have the luxury of a choice in this bad situation. So I know it's maybe a bit dark, but just do your grieving process, move on, and there is like a very strong chance that it will get better.
Yeah.
It will not be easy, of course. Maybe you will still be lonely, but goddamn, I prefer to be lonely today with my books, with my stories, with people coming to see me on convention, say, "Oh, I love your first book. I want all the other ones, and do the keychain and the playmat and everything." These few moments are just pure bliss,
That's wonderful.
because
That's
because
wonderful.
I feel useful, which is a very
Yeah.
male thing, which is
Yes.
also a very strong team that is like we spit on the white male specifically so hard so many times, and the male, like the men, they just want to be useful, like
Exactly. Yeah.
they just want a head pat, like honey, was I a good boy? Yes you are, yes you are. And your man will be happy for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll talk on that topic as well. Most of my viewers are here because they have felt the sting of white erasure, being attacked for being traditional, being attacked or othered for just observing reality and not and rejecting the fake surreality pushed on us, like with transgenderism and feminism and all this shit. So many of the people that follow me, despite having friends and family, feel alone, but specifically because of this, oh, white men are bad, and you have to be feminist, and you have to, uh, all these other evil culture war things that have become so insidious in all parts of our culture now. And it makes those of us who are othered want to beat that. It makes us want to fight that. How do we fight it? Well, there's a lot of different ideas that people have, but the most important thing
White books, it's a good way.
the most important thing that I have learned is letting go of things that are too big. When you look at evil governments, evil corporations, motivated minorities of different ethnic and racial groups from around the world that are in our countries trying to get their way, especially the unnameable ones who love the small hats, like, you can't beat that. You can't fight that because it's too big. And I think so many of us get caught up in wanting to defeat the big bad. It becomes a very ugly, empty, hollow existence of, it
You
doesn't
can't
matter what
change
I do.
people.
Well, no, just let me finish. It doesn't matter what I do. The big evil still exists. And whatever that big evil is to you, whether it's the tiny hats or the communists or the war machine or the deep state or whatever your big bad is, you in your little life can't defeat that. You're not going to. Because darkness in the hearts of men of any kind has always been a big problem. And now that we live in hundreds of millions of people, that are all beholden to massive companies and massive bloated bureaucratic governments, you cannot beat that Colossus. You can't destroy that Leviathan. And you shouldn't feel like that onus is on your neck to do so. And despite me struggling with that for half my life, I am here to tell you that will only make you sad, frustrated, lonely, miserable. It'll make you black-pilled because you can't fight it. You can't stop it. But this is where you have to have hope, because you have to focus on the small, on what you can do to make things better. Can you be a part of your family? Yes or no? Can you be a part of your friends' lives? Yes or no? Can you make a community of other similar-minded people that do productive, good things around you? Yes or no? If you have a yes to any of those questions, you need to pursue that. If you answer no to all of those questions, you have to look to only yourself and what you can do in pursuit of answering yes to at least one of those first three questions. Are there people that you can associate with that are of like mind, that are doing productive, healthy things on a small local level? Number two, friends. Number three, family. Those three things, you need a yes to at least one of those. And if you don't have a yes to any of those, you have to work in pursuit of that. And to work in pursuit of that requires you to be the best you that you can, which you should be doing anyway, even if you can answer yes to the other questions. But in this cursed age of political and social othering, just because you want to speak the truth about science and reality, whether it be about feminism or transsexualism or racial issues or whatever it is, you need to realize you have to work on you, and you have to find a way to make yourself shine and be appealing to other people. And most other people are not culture warriors that wants to take the weight of the world onto their shoulders and go fight the unkillable Leviathan. Most people will never be like that. And if you seek to make them like that, you are going to be alone. You are going to fail. I know, because I failed for years and years, and I had to learn the hard way. And I'm here to tell you to hopefully alleviate that from you. Make friends, make connections, and you cannot be a king, but you can be the best you that you can be when a king arises. You and your countrymen, your friends, your family, your loved ones, your children, you have to do everything you can to prepare for whatever Caesar or king or good times are coming. You have to be ready for that, and you have to contribute to that. But you do that not by fighting Zog, not by trying to dismantle the deep state, not by trying to correct all of the history we've been lied about. Those things are important, but they don't really matter for building cultural importance on a tiny personal level. What matters on that level is getting people together of similar mind and doing positive things. Community projects, building a family, starting a small business, starting a small church or school just for people like us, in service to our people and our way of life and the way that we are supposed to live. If you make your life about those little things, you can find fulfillment, and doing that fights depression, and it gives you hope, because you are doing little things that you control against the Leviathan, against the Colossus. So I know I talked for like 6 or 8 minutes there, but I really wanted to get all that out, because when you asked me to do this stream, that is the first thing that my mind went to, because that's what I've learned the last 10 years, and I wanted to share that today. So
Chris, it's your stream, by the way, so
I know, but it's just me and you talking, so I didn't want to talk too long. But with me sharing all of that, have you discovered similar things in your walk, in your life?
Yeah. Multiple things. I have multiple things to say about following what you just said, because I was in the situation when I had nothing and no one, so no family, no friends, no nothing. I was homeless, by the way. But before that, a thing that resonating on your walking video, because I know this is something that hurt you quite a lot, and I'm sure that it hurts also people in the chat, that in the personal life. You cannot change people. Like, if you if you live among normie or your family who are not interested in you know about the assassination attempt on Trump and blah blah blah, and say, oh, I don't believe blah blah blah. So you feel isolated in such situation. I know I just described two, but I think it's enough for people to get my point. So you feel desperate and like, what do I do? Like I live among stranger, even in my own family, even with my friends, maybe my wife, maybe whatever. And that was my situation, even worse so, because I had no one. I had no girlfriend. I have a few friends who accepted to give me a roof because I was homeless. My grandma, which was my latest, we have to say that, nice family member, not went insane, but her age and her health was so bad that I couldn't take care of her. And so, yeah, it was
That's
a
sad.
very dark moment. My girlfriend left me. Well, I was nowhere, and it was one of the lowest point of my life ever. And this is why when my cat was one of the character I put in my book, because well she accompanied me everywhere. So I just had my cats and my imagination and my video games and stuff like that, and my dreams
Mhm.
of maybe writing my book. It was in 2015. And this is where the culture war happened. And before that, I was a bit leftist, not woke, but
Well, like
uh,
every normal person, yeah.
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 I was young because I was 25, something like that. I was born in 88, so yeah, I think it was
And
25.
especially as a young person who grows up in modernity, you know, you're bombarded with, you know, personal freedom, personal liberty, you know, down with those stuffy old
Yeah,
Christians and those old traditionalists that just want you to blah blah blah. Like everyone in the modern era, even me, who was raised in a private insular Christian community, we were raised on like leftoid liberal ideals
yeah,
that,
and I still believe on those things, but to a certain extent.
right, only to an extent, right.
Because yeah, of course you have your own liberty and stuff, but if your own liberty like impede on the 200 other people like who live nearby, uh, maybe get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Or
I
maybe
think
make a
that
concession,
would be my
please.
political campaign slogan. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, so yeah, and
Vote for me, mass deportation tomorrow.
2015 was one of the lowest points in my life. And when I had finally had my apartment and my diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, because my school path was I didn't graduate in high school, if I have to translate for you. So I was nowhere, and a job, of course, I never worked a day in my life. I tried to do like what's a internship or stuff like that to be like what's the name in English? Educator, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, it didn't work out. Not that the work didn't interest me, but I knew I would definitely kill myself one of those days because I couldn't take it anymore, because social stuff, being among people, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
sensitivity. Uh, Autism is no fun. I know that many people say, oh, autism lol, but no, please, no.
No,
Actual
I know
autism.
it's a joke
Yeah.
with a lot of people, but no, I have a
Oh,
friend like,
I do it too, but just remember that actual autism is a living hell.
yeah, yeah. I have a
So
friend who is much more autistic than you, and
yeah,
her life is hell because of it. It's very sad.
many people who are also autistic talk to me and said, "How do you do it? How do you do convention? How do you do paperwork for your books and stuff like that?" No choice. I just power through, and sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
just to get to the point, I had no one in 2015, and so I was basically in hell, actual hell. Like I'm not a believer, but I believe that sometimes even in hell, the thing we do and the situation we are on actually on Earth. Like sometimes we experience it.
yeah,
Like in the present time sometimes, and for me it was hell.
yeah.
And I got my apartment. Funny story, it's an Arab person who rent me, and she was very nice and said, I believe in you. I think you will give me no trouble. You will pay on time. And I said, thank you. Salam alaikum. But she's nice,
As they
and
say in London, assalamu alaikum.
but no, but she's nice, and her husband is nice, and they trust me. And this month I was late to pay, and I explained to them I had this wonderful opportunity to do a convention, so I just give you half now. The rest will come sooner. And like I think it was yesterday, I pay them what I owe them and the rent of this end of the month. So they are 9 years I'm here. So if they were not good people, sure, like I have no problem with stranger and other culture. Just like Robert said, please don't stab me. But joke aside, I had my apartment, I had my diagnosis, and I had my handicapped person pension, and I had a choice. Like,
Mhm.
do I just still keep jerking off on Pornhub and watch anime and play video game and sometimes get a new PC with the government money, or do I try to do something in life? Because I was desperate to have friends. I was desperate to have a girlfriend. I was desperate to find my family. I was desperate for everything. Like I was thirsting at life, is a way to put it.
Well,
And
let
I
me.
decided,
Mhm.
yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go
and
ahead.
I
Continue.
decided to just pursue my dreams and make my books with a bit of luck in my unfortunate situation in life. And here I am today, and I regret absolutely nothing, and I apologize for nothing, and I'm happy I did the choice I did. And if God would say to me, like he appears and say, you can go back at your own conception. I can remove your autism. I can make that your dad don't die at 3 years of age. Everything. I would say no. I like who I am. I like who I do. I went through hell, but I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, yeah. And by the same token, I also wouldn't want to be different because I feel like my experiences have given me a unique um it puts me in a unique position to be able to talk personally about the evils of the particular type of anti-whiteism that hurt me, the homosexual stuff, the transsexual stuff, the deracination of my religious community that I was from. And I was pulled into things I shouldn't have been pulled into because of all of these harmful, deracinating, hurtful things. And now I'm in a position to where I know how to counsel about it. I know what to say about it because I lived it. I went through it. And despite the pain and the suffering and all the bad times and all the ugly things I still see when I close my eyes, I don't want I wouldn't want to not exist as I am now because I think that someone like me needs to exist to tell people and to warn people
I have the
about
same
about
feeling.
about hey, I went over there to those woods. There's bad shit in those woods. I went over there. Here's the scars. Let me tell you what's over there. Like if I never got to experience all of those awful things, I wouldn't know firsthand that the people warning you about them are correct. And
Mm.
so it puts me in a unique position to, I think, do some good and contribute to some good in the world and some good for my people. And I wouldn't trade that. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Does it suck that a lot of my childhood was ass and that a lot of my early adulthood was terrible because I made bad choices and got involved with ideologies and groups of people that were destructive, evil, anti-white pieces of shit? Yeah, that sucks. But, you know, nobody's life is perfect. Everybody's got their own problems. Everybody's got their own pains and sadnesses. So I don't want to trade away mine because I feel like it wouldn't be who I am. It would make me something that I'm not. And I
Correct me
like
if
I
I'm
like
wrong,
being
but
what I am and where I am to warn about the dangers of things that are out there.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even Jesus was not a perfect man. Like he did some bad stuff in the Bible, and like he was human.
Right. You know, there's stories about that, but it I'm not trying to compare myself to Jesus here. That's
No,
not
no,
that's
no,
not
no. But we are all just human. That's what I'm
right,
going
right.
at.
Yeah. And so where I'm going with this is I understand what you mean when you say that even if God told you that you could have a redo or a reload to a previous save state, that you wouldn't do it. I get that. But for the viewer, for the listener, I want to encourage you guys out there. You need to own your darknesses and own your problems.
Yes.
It's a very important part. And a big part of looking at life is accepting death. And a big part of death is a healthy grieving and mourning process. Have we
Yes.
lost a great civilization? Yes. Have we all made bad choices and bad decisions because of all the anti-whites and government and media and everything poisoning our minds? Yes. Have we made dumb decisions because of sexual impulses or because of greed or because of whatever else? Yes, we've all made these problems. Those are yours. You have to own them and you have to face them just like death. And another big problem with our culture, especially American culture, is acting like death isn't real and acting like if you just don't look at it and don't talk about it, death is going to go away and not bother you. That is one of the worst elements of how modern life is for everyone. Death used to be an important part of life, and it used to be a thing that everyone had to accept and talk about. It was in your face all the time. Everyone had to kill animals to eat. Everyone had children and brothers and sisters that died as an infant or died to consumption or another illness when they were young. Death is not something we can defeat, and it's a disservice to our well-being to act like it's something we can triumph over. It isn't. So, extrapolating from that, looking at yourself, you have faults. You are going to get sick. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to get old and weak, and you're going to die. Every single one of you listening to this right now. But that's not a bad thing. That's not something that has to make you sad or depressed or fatalistic. It's a natural part of life that we used to embrace and accept. And you have to be that way. And a big part of mourning and grieving is to accept it. You have to accept that all of this evil war machine stuff, all of the feminism, all of the transgenderism, all the anti-whiteism, all these communisms and all this stuff is going to exist after you're dead, and it existed before you were alive. And you can't defeat all of that. You just have to accept that the world that we live in now has flaws. You have to accept it. You can mourn if you want. I mourn for what used to be that was better than what we have now. But an important part of mourning and grieving is hope for the future. I am hopeful that the Old Glory Club is going to have tremendous academic and political success across America. I am hopeful that the white well-being community is going to spread the curative contagion of the Go Free method and heal the wound of deracination, of racial and ethnic deracination of Western kind. I'm hopeful for that. I see that happening. And there are other things, other groups of people doing excellent things in technology, in government, in civics, in religion, that are doing good things, trying their best to make something better for what comes tomorrow. And I think that is what should give you hope. And you can get to that hope with personal actions on the small scale, and then having a healthy way of thinking about things on a massive scale that you can't really do much about. So remember, you can mourn and you can grieve, but you must accept. You must accept that evil, terrible people that aren't even of your own race sometimes have done horrible things to you, your ancestors, and to our country. I'm sorry, that's just true. You have to accept it. You have to mourn it. You have to get over it, and you have to move forward. And you have to have hope. And you get hope by being involved with other people who do good things. And you can do good things on a small scale. You can do good things on a personal scale. You can stop drinking. You can stop drinking booze. You can stop drinking soda. You can stop eating goy slop and actually eat real food. You can stop looking at porn. You can stop using Tinder or whatever to find easy women. You can stop doing things that are bad for you, and you can start doing things that are good for you. That can give you hope as well. And so I encourage you to do those things, but more than anything, accept, mourn, grieve, and move on. Move on to hope, move on to positivity. So, Chris, what do you think about that? Do you have anything to add to that?
Not much. I would just add the thing that we are in shit. The world is in a shit state.
It
and
sure is.
It will stay like that and even worsen for maybe 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know, but for a while before it get better. So yeah, just try to do your best to keep positive in a way. Maybe it's a bit naive or over formulation, but that's the gist of it. Is that people often ask me in convention when they see like my 6 books and my big decoration and stuff, and they say, "Oh, where do you draw all your ideas and inspiration?" I had a shitty life. That's always what I say.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Like the greatest work of art, like especially in literature, by the way, where do they come from? Pain,
Yeah.
suffering,
Pain and suffering. Yep.
grief, love, or like lost love most of the time. Like it's all like let's say that when you say you have to hope, I'm like dead set on it, and it's always something that I'm very not pissed off, but I'm annoyed by people who say, "Oh, the human race, oh, bad humans, bad. The human race is a piece of shit." And like, so
Yeah,
you
those
yourself are a
people are
piece.
those people are sick.
Yeah, I understand the sentiment, but I'm like, you are a piece of shit. I am a piece of shit. Like, no, I'm actually hopeful for human race. That doesn't mean that I think it was in
Well, human races, that's plural. There are different races
yeah,
of
yeah.
human. Yeah.
I think it was in John Constantine. He said the girl said to him like, "Human is a bad creature, Mister Constantine." He said, "Yes, of course, we are capable of dire thing, horrible thing, but we're also capable of great thing like kindness, generosity, selflessness, and stuff like that." So, I think someone in the YouTube chat said. Maybe that's what makes us human, the dark part of it. Like maybe I don't know, but it's definitely one part of the human spirit and human condition. And one thing that you can do, and this is my field, so of course I will pray for my own churches. Take what make you sad, what make you suffer, and try to transform them into gold, which is basically the process of art. Like um, take for example Michelangelo with the 16th chapel. Like maybe it was not like dark stuff, but it was like, what is God, what is human, what is how can I be of service to him in a way. I know I extrapolate, but you get my gist. And he did one of the greatest piece of art that ever
Yeah.
been created
Oh,
in
it's
human history.
majestic. Yeah. I would love to actually stand there and look at it one day.
Yeah, or even I don't know, like to do on other field like music. Beethoven was going deaf, and what he did, Ninth Symphony, one of the greatest piece of music
Oh yeah.
ever created.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like try to. I know it's painful, but believe me, I'm living the scene of Pulp Fiction when Samuel L. Jackson said, "I'm trying my best to be the shepherd."
Yeah.
Believe me, try to do art with suffering is one of the best things that can happen in your life. Honestly, I will be a bit cocky and say thank me later, but believe me, there is no best way to tend to old and painful wounds. Will it be the decline of a civilization? Will it be the death of being a kid in the 90s with everyone on their bike and going on an adventure in the forest, or an old mill, or I don't know, because we lost all of that? Or just being around the TV all together, like, oh, hello, Mrs. Carter. Can I go see play with Timmy? Oh, he's in the backyard. Yeah, we lost all that, but take all of that you feel about all of those things and be creative. Will it be in actual art form, or try to make a community, create a Discord, create, I don't know, a website, create a video game? You have all that you need,
Well
which is
said.
my closure words.
Well said. Well said. Well, friend, I think that's a good place to end. We both shared positivity here at the end, and that's what I really wanted people to take away from this is despite all the darknesses we face, you can do something about it, but you have to do it wisely and in the right mindset. And you can have hope and positivity. You just have to go at it the correct way, and you have to mourn, grieve, and accept the things that are lost and the things that are too big for you to deal with. And I highly recommend all of you take the things that we said here today to heart and to keep heart, which is sort of my catchphrase that's developed over the last several years. You have to keep heart because if you lose that and the flame goes out, then there's no reason to live. There's no reason to do anything. So you have to cultivate that. And the best way to have personal well-being is through the well-being of your people and the community around you. So invest in that, and it's its own reward that will help uplift you to a better place. So, Chris, we only had one paid chat come in the whole time, and it's from my longtime financial supporter, Promethean Healing. So thank you very much for this kind and generous donation of $50. Thank you so much, Promethean Healing. PH sent us on Subscribestar $50, Chris. He says, perfect start to my weekend, ending this week's graveyard shift with a good stream by better people. Thank you, Chris, and he is.
Well, thank you, kind sir, for listening.
Well, Christopher, I had a wonderful conversation with you. I'm glad it went well. It's always nice to talk about heavy, serious things with you because you're a very beautiful person in that regard, and I'm glad you decided to come share some of that with us today. Is there anything that you would like to shill or talk about, or some closing thoughts to leave the audience with, or is what you said last enough?
Not much. If you in a position to like bear my very French accent on YouTube, you can go check my YouTube channel and maybe check my books. But unfortunately, yes, they're mostly like 95% of all I do is in French. But outside of that, yeah, keep supporting Yiz because I consider her a friend of mine, and it's a pleasure to try to help my fellow whiteys, but also fellow people who maybe would prefer that the world would be on a different state, which is something I share.
I think that's most people that have any sense at all.
Yes, I'm Belgian, but I speak French.
Yeah, you're definitely not a frog.
No, please, no. Don't end this stream on a bad note, please.
No, you're the good kind of frog. You're the Pepe kind of frog like me. All right. Well, Chris, I had a great time talking to you. Thank you for being here. And thank you to everyone who listens and helps my channel grow. Please consider sharing this content. If you have someone in your life or even a friend online that you think might be struggling with the issues we talked about today, please share this stream with them, with him or her. This stream hopefully will land with any dissident who is struggling with all of the things that we all struggle with. And hopefully the words that Chris and I shared today can help get you listening now and any of the friends or family that you know to a better place. And that's where we all need to be. And that's what the goal of all of our movements and all of our various ideas and thoughts are, is to take our people to a better place than we are now. So with that being said, love yourself, love your people, be kind and speak truth in a way that others can hear it, and do everything you can to be positive in your life. And I'll see you Thursday night for Empire of Lies on my channel at 6 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UK time. Good night and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.